Welcome to the Totally Awesome Fishing Show, where we are in sunny Ireland. Okay, it's not very sunny today. It's windy, it's grey, it's cloudy, it's drizzly, but it is Ireland. Now today we're going to be talking about lure fishing for pollock. That's artificial lures. No bait allowed, it's banned. I'm over here with the Beara Peninsula's top shore guide, Paul Harris. We're going to be talking tackle, we're going to be talking real lightweight rods for pollock fishing. Really good sport over here. A box like this is all you need of assorted lures. Different types of lures, obviously. Well, let's face it, most of the lures catch more anglers than they do catch fish. But we're going to try and get out later this afternoon and actually catch some pollock. Now, shore fishing for pollock is very good. It's great fun, it's good sport, you're out in the open air. But more important from my point of view, being a cameraman, I don't like carrying lots of equipment as well as the camera equipment. And to be honest, look, this, a box of lures, a nice lightweight rod and reel, that's all you need to go pollock fishing. Even if you're on holiday, you're on vacation, you don't need a lot of gear, and I tell you what, some cracking sport. So, into Paul's nice warm conservatory. At least the rain stopped, that's something. And let's see Paul's opinion on some of the better lures and rigs, outfits. And listen, this is most important, techniques of catching pollock from the rocks in deep water. He's good at it. Let's hear some of his tips. Come on. Well, Paul, it's good to be back, mate.
Good to see you again, Graeme.
Back here again. Many years ago we met. Paul and I fishing. I can't tell you how many bream we caught. Probably be banned now if we went bream fishing. But anyway, we're going to be going pollock fishing now, Paul. You've got a vast array of lures, tackle, and obviously you do a lot of this pollock fishing. I know you like pollock fishing, it's good fun. I like pollock fishing as well, I like tackle. As I was telling the YouTubers, you guys out there just now, I was telling you travelling light. It was a bit alien to me travelling light with all the camera equipment, but it doesn't look like we're travelling light. Paul's not travelling light with this lot, and you have to have as many lures as you can. It's just part of the tackle talk that goes with fishing. But some lures work, some don't. Most of these we all think work, don't we, Paul?
All on their day.
Now, for pollock, just give us a brief insight into rods and reels that people could go if they're on vacation, if they're on holiday. What sort of outfit can they use just to go spinning for pollock off the rocks?
Well, if you're a normal sort of sea angler, you'll have a spinning rod of some kind. You don't need a heavy, clunky rod. We're getting away from this in sea angling now. We're getting away from these big, heavy rods sort of thing. The sort of LRF rods have brought in a bit of a revolution, really, to our fishing. So you can fish with the nice little light rods,
yep,
up to about, should we say, sort of a pike fishing rod, something like that, if you're a coarse fisherman. If you've got a pike rod, fine, take that with you. Sort of £1.5 test curve in old money sort of thing. That's more or less what we'd use. It really, the rod relates to the weight that you're going to cast out. Obviously, if you want to cast out a 2-ounce lead, you can't use a little light rod that's rated to sort of an ounce.
And wind. You're on the ocean here. You're right on the Atlantic. You've got to take into account the wind for casting.
Wind and also depth, because depth is also going to sort of say what sort of weight you're going to use on the end. Yeah. It's no good putting a half-gram weight on if you're fishing in 30 foot of water. You're going to be spending most of your holiday waiting for it to sink before it gets to the bottom.
Basically, what you're saying, you're not in the kill zone of where those pollock are.
Pollock live deep. They live generally deep. They live in the kelp. They live in all the sort of hard to get at places. It's the old story. If you're not losing the odd lure, you're not fishing in the right place.
That's why you need plenty of lures.
You need plenty of lures, but they're cheap.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. You see, you could go out and buy these sort of really lovely plugs. The hard plastic plugs. They're great. They catch lots of fish. I mean, these things, they're about sort of £12–15 each. Great. They catch wonderful bass and everything like that. But you don't need them for pollock.
Yes.
And you don't want to put them where the pollock are, which is right down in the kelp beds. And it breaks your heart if you lose them. So what we're talking about is these sort of things. Back to our use, really, here, Graeme. The old sort of Eddystone eel type.
Yeah,
red gills.
Artificial sand eel, isn't it?
Artificial sand eels. And probably, I mean, nowadays, you really got these fabulous sort of glitter eels and that, which really flash and everything on them, little eyes and everything. This is what the pollock eats.
Yes.
At the end, if we were trout fishing, we'd say match the hatch. Right, we're matching what the pollock eats. As illogically as I caught a pollock last year, about sort of near enough £9, which died. Now I put 95% of my pollock back, and this one just for some reason died. I caught it on this little eel, And when I brought it home and opened it up, because I was going to eat it, not waste it, I opened it up and out fell a herring. That big.
Oh, really? So
whole,
they take a big bait.
Yeah, whole perfect herring, and there were sort of half-digested herrings in it, yet it took a little bit of rubber. So the food instinct is still there with them. But we've had days when we've caught 20, 30 pollock on one of these.
As many as that, really?
Yeah, and we're having a great time.
Yeah.
And we say, oh no, are they just eating these? Let's try something different. Let's try the old firetail, a great favourite for pollock fishing.
I've got some of those, yeah.
And all of a sudden, no, we can't catch. And we've had like 20 casts and we've caught probably one fish, and we put one of these back on, boom, we catch fish.
Yeah.
Another day, it would be the complete reverse. We'd be catching on this, but we couldn't catch on this. The important thing with pollock fishing, chop and change. Just because you're not catching doesn't mean there's no pollock there or your lure isn't sort of working properly. It can be that they're just not feeding on that particular colour. They do respond to colour. You know, we have all these red-headed ones, we have green ones.
Now you mentioned another year I came with you, I remember, you were talking about in the springtime the fish react differently. The pollock are deeper, sometimes they'll actually take a fish bait on the bottom, and why is it? Is it that their prey fish or something aren't about? You know that adapt their feeding.
They're hungry. You know, fish eat. Fish have to eat to live, sort of like we all do. But they're hungry, so we often find that certainly sort of April time, May, before the sand eel are really coming in great numbers, and the pollock will come in looking for them. Not so much food about, so we've put our bottom bait down, our piece of mackerel or our frozen sand eel down for a huss or a ray or something, and all of a sudden the reel will be taking off and screaming, and we've got 6 pound of pollock on the end. But following on from that, through the year, a great method of pollock fishing, float fishing.
Oh really? Yeah.
And people don't do it enough really. Now you can use ragworm. Ragworm's a great bait for pollock. But in the deeper water around the Beara, we often use the float. Now that's a fairly big.
Even I can see that with that with glasses.
That's taking sort of near sort of 2 ounce lead, ounce and a half, ounce and 3/4 of lead. And we'll fish that at depths of 30 foot on a sliding rig with a sand eel on, frozen sand eel about like that. And great fun. See that big old thing going along and vanishing away. Yeah. And we have some big pollock doing that. Great fun way of fishing, a very simple way of fishing as well.
Sure.
And that can be done not just in deep water, you can still do it in 10 foot, 12 foot of water. So never neglect float fishing for pollock using, say, be it worm or a sand eel or something like that.
Now then, talking, you mentioned depth a couple of times here. Now, a lot of you guys out there go shore fishing. If you're on the south coast of England, I mean, there's no depth. You've got to have distance casting out across vast, sort of featureless, flat, sandy areas. Here, a lot of the kelp is going to be closer to the rocks, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
But you've also got incredible depths out here on the Beara Peninsula, and you've got to be aware of this, guys. If you're spinning, as Paul said earlier, you cast out, you give it 2 seconds, and you start cranking in, you'll probably get nothing more than mackerel. Would I be right, Paul? What do you need to do? Is there some technique, countdown or something that?
I suppose,
in really deep water.
Yeah, if you want to come up with a quick saying, deep and slow. If you want to catch big pollock, deep and slow.
That's the main technique.
That's really, you keep that in your head. And so what I do, you're using at least that weight. You know, we were talking that's ounce and a half or so, something like that.
Yeah.
Even that will take 30 seconds to get to the bottom. And I'm a great counter. As soon as the lead hits the water, leave the bail arm open, most important. As soon as the lead hits the water, I'm 100, 200, 300, 400. Because I want to know what depth I'm at. Yeah. So if it's 30, boom, lead hits the bottom and the line stops coming off the reel. Yeah. If you're using the main system we fish is lead onto the line.
Yes, on your main line.
On your main line, yeah. To a little swivel. Sorry, to a little bead. The little bead's very important. It stops tangles, a little bead.
Yes.
So lead, bead, swivel.
Yeah.
And then from the swivel,
then you trace on the end of that.
We've got about 3 foot, about a metre. Sorry, I must get more technical with these things. About a metre of line, and then your lure. And so your lure would be, shall we say, that's about a sort of 3/0 hook and one of our glitter worms.
Yes.
And no technical ways of hooking it on.
Almost like threading a bait up.
Just thread it on, pull it through. There's only one important thing. Most important thing is that when it goes through the water, make sure it's going through the water straight.
Yes.
It has to look like the bait fish that they're eating. If you have it sort of like that,
hanging down,
then it'll be sort of going
spinning.
It won't look
natural.
Won't look natural. So just make sure it's straight. So, right, we've done all that. Our lead has gone down 30 foot or 30 seconds. hit the bottom, your little rubber eel is still a metre up above it. And so when you start your retrieve, so the hook isn't down on the bottom catching anything straight away. So you start your retrieve. Now, whatever, I don't know how good a caster you are, you give it as good a hit as possible, but your angle of retrieve immediately is going to be sort of like that, coming up from the bottom to where you're standing on the rock. So you want to keep it down in that killing area, down amongst the kelp as long as possible.
Yes.
And so not, they're not GT
slow,
these, nice and steady really, not slow so much I suppose, but steady.
Yes.
And just keep a steady retrieve, and don't worry about all this jigging the rod and walking the dog and strangling the cat, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Just keep it coming. You watch a sandy or swimming in the water and it swims like that.
Yes.
So
it's not a fairly level, even plane.
It doesn't do this or only that, it just swims, sort of thing. And that's we've found to be the best. And these pollacks come up behind it and they engulf it. They just gone.
Now, is that the same as boat fishing, that you mustn't strike, you've got to sort of wind them on? Is it the same principle?
It's pretty much the same principle. If you think when you're drifting on a boat with a sandy or something, you really just hold the rod and let the boat do the work.
Yeah.
And just let the bait work along as you're on the boat. It's just the same when you're standing on the shore, only you're in control more using the reel instead of the boat drifting. On
the size of fish over here in Ireland, where you are on the Beara, would it be 2-3 pound would be your average fish? I know you have some real monumental catches here.
Certainly average. I mean, we just had a guest just leave now. He was out on Tuesday. He had 62 pollock, I think he had for his day's fishing.
Read my lips. That's 62 pollock, guys.
And his best fish, he didn't land it. He touched the leader. Should we go American?
Yeah, American.
He touched the leader.
Palm Beach release.
He didn't take a landing net with him.
Yeah.
Rule: take a landing net with you when you go pollock fishing. I know it sounds a simple rule, but there's so many people come out here and they don't think about a landing net. As they're going, I say, have you got a landing net? No? Here's a landing net.
Yes, I know about
a landing net with you, because it's vital. That's the way he landed it. He had this fish, he had to bring it 2 foot out of the water onto the rock where he was.
Yes.
He started to lift it up, it fell off.
Oh no.
He put that fish at £14.
Good God, really?
And every year we get fish in double figures, 10, 12, 14 pounds. We get lots of them. Not lots of them, sorry. We probably get about 20 a year.
That's still a lot.
It's still a lot of fish.
For shore fishing,
for shore fishing, it's fantastic. But I tell you what, £6, £7 pollock, wow, that's a lot of fun. A lot of sport, a lot of fun. And you know, we were saying fishing deep down, fishing amongst the kelp. If you do hook up on the bottom and you do get snagged and you give it a pull and you lose it, you've lost 50p.
A hook and a piece of rubber, that's all it is.
That's all you've lost. And within seconds you can re-rig, cast out again and there. But if you're not losing some, you're not fishing in the right place.
Now the other thing is, I see these here. We used to use these.
The old traditionals, yeah.
Would these be used, say, 20 feet was shallower? Would you tend to use these shallower?
Yeah, they would be. These are the more sort of, you don't want to sort of be getting deep water with these. They're great fun and they catch fish. I mean, there's a little sprat going through the water sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're flashers. They'll always attract the pollock. We find we tend to catch smaller pollock on them.
Yes.
So we get more sort of £2-3 pollock on that. But once again, great fun, light rod, and they're so easy. You just walk down to the beach, clip it on. It's its own weight. So fire it out. And you know, when we're talking about the counting, even when I'm using these and counting, right, you've counted 30 to get to bottom. Fish for half an hour or so, nothing happens. Next time you go out, count to 20.
So you're shallowing it.
So you're coming up in depth. It might be that the sand eel are swimming, you know, 10 or 20 foot off the bottom. So search the different depths, and by counting, you can fish at different depths. You know where your lure is. Be aware. Know where your lure is, sort of thing.
Now you've got a spool of line here. I guess that's your trace on whatever you want to use.
What
sort of strain will people use? What baking strain?
Well, now we can see it's totally logical. My main sort of reel line is about 12 to 15 pounds, and I think that's most people's averages would be for their spinning rod. This line actually, it's a very sort of low density line, but it's very strong. It's about 16 pounds.
Is that right? Yeah. It's about 12 in diameter.
Yeah, it's very low density, but it's very abrasion proof as well. I've been using it now for about 5 years, and it's a fabulous line for it. So I'm kind of breaking the rules there, because your trace should always be of a lower breaking strain than your main line.
Yeah.
So it is slightly more than my main line. But I've also got to take into account pollock who've got teeth.
Yes.
And they will be abrasive on your line, and your last yard or so of line takes a lot of hammer on rocks and one thing or another. So you keep checking it regular, and in a day's fishing I might change my trace half a dozen times.
Yes, because you're catching fish, it's going to wear.
You'll feel it. You'll run your finger down. Oh, that's rough.
Yes.
Change it. because that's cheap. What's that cost you? Something about 2p or something.
It could lose you a good fish though.
And it could cost you the fish of a lifetime sort of thing. So it's most important. And you've got all these, you can do all sorts of things. You've got these lovely little things, look, they're great. That's the old hook for the Texas rigging.
Yes.
I mean, I think we talked on Texas rigging before, but this is a lure, Sluggo, another great pollock lure.
Yeah, I've not used that one, I must admit.
And this is Texas rig, so you'd actually put the hook point into the rubber. So that can now, you can just rub my finger over it. I'm not going into my finger. That's going through the weed. And
so you can pull that almost through the kelp bed.
Through the kelp bed, and there it is stuck in there. And when the pollock takes and it grabs it, it literally just pops the hook out.
Yes.
The first time I used it, I had no faith in them whatsoever. But they work. They work. And I know actually our friend we were talking about earlier had 60 pollock. He was using these just the other day, and he was also using some of the little sand eel ones. But he messed around, changed his lure, and just kept catching fish.
Keep ringing the changes.
Ring the changes, mess around with different colours and different depths and one thing to other. There's more to pollock fishing than people just realise.
It's not throwing out and pulling back all the time.
I think people treat pollock fishing as chuck it out and bring it back. Chuck it out and bring it back. When I can't bring it back, I've got one. If you, I said this the other day, that if people treated pollock fishing as seriously as people are treating bass fishing, they'd be quite surprised at what they catch.
Target those big ones deeper.
And we have one guy in particular that comes in who targets the big pollock, and he'll hardly have a day out where he won't get a double figure fish.
Really?
And
he's incredible fishing for the
shore.
It's
fantastic.
You've got amazing fishing here. Now the other point is, if you're out on these rocks, guys, it's not just pollock. You've got to think, hang on, you can catch what? Big wrasse over here as well?
Oh, great wrasse.
And they really will pull your string. So what sort of lures would they take, Paul? There's an outside chance if we get out this afternoon, as I said earlier, it's an Irish day, it's windy, bit of rain going to stop now. Hopefully we'll get out this afternoon, we'll hopefully show you a few pollock. But as I understand it, there's also a chance that wrasse will take these lures now.
The wrasse will take that. We never used to. We used to catch a wrasse on a lure.
Occasional one.
Yeah, we get one on one of these and we're spinning and we go, oh look, I caught a wrasse sort of thing. Whoa, I'm not lucky. Now, of course, there's a whole industry developed on wrasse fishing with these sort of these little sort of soft plastics of various kinds and
these small grubs.
Would
a wrasse, for instance, take that?
A wrasse will have a go at that. What you're doing now with the wrasse is you're not trying to get them to feed.
Yes.
You're actually sort of putting the hook in that, and it's going up and down, and it's going into their lair. It's going where they live. Yeah. They're attacking it. They're not trying to eat it. They're trying to kill it.
Now these won't be fished far out. Will they be fishing almost down the wall of the rock?
You're casting out probably about 15 yards or so, and just bouncing it back, or just moving it back. So you're dropping it all the time, trying to find out where that wrasse lives. Once again, it's this method of hooking. It's Texas rigging because you're going right in all the kelp and weed and everything. Gotcha. So you want the hook buried. I mean, some of the ones that we've been catching on some of the more successful lures look really well. They look nothing. I mean, that looks nothing like anything that swims in the sea.
Yes, especially the colour. Yeah,
but if that goes into a wrasse's house sort of thing, he's going to bite it.
He's going to grab it.
And when he grabs it, we've got the wrasse.
So is it quite an aggressive take with them?
Oh yeah.
They bang at it two or three times?
You need to stay in contact. Make sure you stay in contact. Braid's very good. If you're fishing sort of braid, really, it's good for that because you can stay in contact with the lure really well. And you can use these sort of things, or lighter leads. It doesn't have to be this. This is probably a bit more distance fishing that you could use for pollock fishing with the Texas rigging hook on. But the other great thing for wrasse, float fishing. Any of these floats, they all work well for wrasse. Yeah. You've got a wrasse bait sitting in front of you. You're fishing off the rocks. There's the wrasse bait.
So you could, again, travelling light, you could have a knapsack full of lures, and you can have maybe some ragworm, a few hardback crabs, a bit of bait, some prawns or something like that, in a little small plastic container. And if the pollock go off, you've got outside chance of a wrasse.
Yeah, I was say you could knock some limpets off the rocks.
Yes.
Another great bait for wrasse. And you've already got all the equipment. All you're carrying is a float. That weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And all it. Actually, I just picked this float. I didn't notice at the time. We have another species coming here on the Beara during the summer, triggerfish.
Yeah.
And they come right in close, and you can catch them just the same as if you're fishing for wrasse. Actually, you can catch them on little hardback crabs or limpets or anything like that. But these are the most ferocious, vicious fish. That float actually was that much longer.
Oh, really?
And they bit the top of it. Look, they've bitten a lump out of it there, and a lump out of it there, and you can actually see. I don't know whether the camera can pick it up. There's actually teeth marks there. Look,
of the trigger.
yeah, they're like a beak, and it's like. And often the way we know there's triggerfish there is if we've gone wrasse fishing and we've popped a float out, and all of a sudden something's attacking the float. I think great sport, the triggerfish, great fun. Just a summer visitor that we get to the Beara.
Now let's think of the weather. What sort of area are we going to be fishing today, Paul?
Well,
we get out this afternoon. Looks like it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah,
it's lifting a bit.
The rain stopped and everything. It was that fine misty rain, which you never think is raining, but makes you wet and makes the rocks wet as well. So you go out with caution as well. So we'll really just look out, see which way the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
And we can always, on the peninsula, we can always tuck away out of the wind, and we'll have a look, as what we've been talking about. We'll have a go for some pollock, and might have a go for a wrasse as well.
Fingers crossed we catch something. We've certainly got enough lures. Let's pack them up. Let's get cracking.
Okay.
I keep coming back to Ireland year after year for the unspoilt scenery, the superb fishing and, well, lack of people. It really is a pleasure to get out and explore different sections of coastline, and who knows, you might even be the first angler to cast a rod there. But of course, you are on the open Atlantic Ocean, so be prepared for wind and rain. It's just part of what fishing in Ireland is all about.
Well, it's hard to believe we've had to move 3 different times now. Looking at rock marks because they're so dangerous and so slippery. You can't really see it here, but this black rock behind me, all this black stuff is really, really slippery when it gets rainy. So we've managed to come down here at the end of a headland, and we are at least fishing. Meanwhile, Paul here is living dangerously on the edge of the rocks there, just as the tide and the swell's coming up, and there's a big tide rip past the end of the headland here between the island.
And Paul's perseverance paid off with the first fish of the afternoon. Okay, it's not a monster, but a better sized fish than I've caught sometimes on a full day from a British beach. And there is the red-headed sandhill that he caught it on. Paul always did like a nice redhead. No, I mean lures, please, lures. But with a falling tide, we decided on a trek to the cave-ridden north coast, and this cave actually ran right through to the open Atlantic Ocean on the other side of the headland. And look here, I'm now so famous, they've named an entire cliff walk after me. Dog's Point should really read Doghouse, as I'm often in it by fishing for too long. Now the sign says, "You are here," but I'm not, am I? I'm actually on the edit suite back in England, but you know what they mean. We were going to climb all the way round past the caves to a headland where deep water came in close to shore. And watch out for the Beara burglar. He's going through the rucksacks looking for the chocolate biscuits. The weather had deteriorated, with the tide well down, as you can see from the marks on the rocks, and a force 5, sometimes gusting 6, hitting us head on. It certainly wasn't pretty, and we still had to climb out over the headland and see then if we could even get down to any sort of fishing platform. This was also a new spot for Paul. To make matters worse, it had started to rain. Plus, I'd left the big camera for safety back in the car and was now down to using just 2 small handheld units, as walking over rocks in rain can be treacherous underfoot. But Paul was soon in action again with the first pollock, and on a rubber worm this time.
So there's a small one we just picked up. You can look at the colours on it, you can see it's been living right down in the kelp and the weed and everything. I lost the one about 4 or 5 pound about half an hour ago, just trying to swing it up out of the weeds. I think Graham's had a good one just up to my left. Horrible conditions, really breezy. This is a new place, never fished here before, so we thought we'd give it a try. And you see, even in the worst of weather, the old rubber eels and everything do their job.
By now, the wind had, if anything, increased, and it was really a dangerous place to fish, as any rogue wave from the swell can wash you off the rocks. That is a point to beware of. But I decided to tough it out in the teeth of the wind using a really heavily weighted jig on a firetail rubber worm. After casting, I let the heavy lure sink and sink and sink as the waves and wind were combining to hold the line back and slowing that lure's descent to the seabed.
Big. I don't know if you're going to see this. I can't even go and get Paul because he's round the corner. So we'll try and get what we can of this. Let's switch ahead, guys. You can see it. I want to get the fish back. Amazing fight, but I tell you what, so dangerous when I'm fishing. Big swirls coming in all the time. I'm going to show you now. Here comes one now.
Now get right down to the rocks, guys. You might be able to see it. Beautiful, beautiful rock pollock there. Just look at the colours on this one. Absolutely fabulous colours along it. It's a big fish. It's about 8 pounds. And what a fight getting it out of the kelp. With a big pollock filmed, I wanted to keep on trying, but those crashing waves were really bothering me. So it was time for another move, as the North Peninsula was far too rough to fish. We decided to travel right on the other side of the Beara Mountains, and for that you have to travel through the world famous Healey Pass, right on top of the Beara Mountains. Huge granite monuments that have been there for millions of years, and what a drive it was. Fantastic scenery. On a sunny day it must be unbelievable for photographers. For us it was getting from A to B, but you just have to stop and take pictures. It's what Ireland is really all about. From the top of the pass, it was like standing on top of the world and just looking down at all the tiny specks of houses. And look at all that lovely water. Everywhere you go, there's lakes, streams, rivers, and a Skeletrix track. It looks like a little toy car going down there, but it's actually the Healey Pass Road. Now there's one to go down in your sports car at high speed. Just watch out for the sheep and falling rocks. Once down on the other side we were somewhat sheltered, although there's still a bit of a chop coming in. You can see it was far more comfortable to cast out and fish. And with that in mind, at the slow retrieve, let that lure work deep. A nice steady retrieve. Paul was soon in action again. Is he lucky, or is he some sort of fishing guide or something?
Well, it proved worth the change. We moved around from the other side because it was getting a bit rough, and very quickly we're finding some nice fish. We actually need the tide to come in a bit more because the landing net's not long enough. Oh.
Get in there.
Come on. Come on, fish. There we have him. Yeah, I'm going to have to get a longer landing net or only fish at high tide. Oh, there we go. That's a nice fish.
That's a nice stab of pollock.
Yeah.
So out here on the Beara, that's nothing unusual really to hit a fish that size.
No, that's a nice fish. What, 4 pound? 4 pound or so? Might be a little bit more. Just a nice quality fish. Great big mouth. And takes a little plastic lure. Look at that. Hey, get him out there. Look at that for a lovely.
That's a chunk of pollock.
Looking fish. There we go. If you got the hook gone through and hooked the net somehow.
Oh, I hate that when it does it. Yeah.
There we go. There he is.
Beautiful gold colour to it.
And if you wonder why they take little lures, look at that mouth, hey?
That's a beauty, Paul.
Nice fish. So
Put him back, keep him for tea. What do you do?
oh, this one will go back to
Put
the
him
thing,
back,
really,
yeah.
yeah.
Lovely looking fish.
Just pop the hook out of him.
Now that's what I call a boat-sized pollock.
Yeah,
At
well,
least
unusual
boat
fish.
size.
I mean, that is, oh, it's over £4, that certainly. Probably touching 4.5. So we'll pop him back.